tuned into the 585 Report with ATN and Bishop. Catch us each and every Sunday from 6 to 7 p.m. on 100.9 WXIR, where we elevate the conversation on the Rochester community through go-getters from around the town. What up, what up, what up?
What's going on? How you doing? I'm glad to be back.
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm very well, very well.
So, today we got a bit of a change. Bishop is out living his best life. I'm not sure what he's doing. He told me he was going somewhere. I don't know. He said he had a vacation scheduled and somebody backed out. Well, whatever it may be, he's not here today.
I'm going to say, whatever it is, we wish him safe travels.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Stay black and come back. That's all it is. You know what I mean?
But who we do have in the building is Mr. Shay Hagens.
How you doing?
I'm doing good. So, when I reached out to you, I asked you, what did you want to talk about? And so basically today, you leading this conversation because...
Yeah, all right, so we're going to jump right into it. So when she reached out to me, she asked me, you know, what I wanted to talk about. Just a little background. Over the last couple weeks, about like the last 5 weeks, I'm actually wrapping up as of tomorrow. I've been taking a gender theory course. And it has brought a lot of questions, has brought a lot of attention to some things I want to address. And I want to say it from a term that we have to use, which is a postmodernized heterosexual, you know what I mean, perspective. I want to say these things and understand that I am saying them from the perspective of me. I can't talk for everybody, but I do have a sense of understanding. And there are some things that it's like we have to go back in history and kind of revisit in order to make a lot of sense of what I'm about to say. So the class was queer theory, and this queer theory kind of was broken up into segments. And it talked about a lot of things individually, but it made sense of everything that I ever thought about, everything that I ever questioned, everything that I ever things that I've challenged, things that didn't sit well with me, things that it's like, you know, you probably see it and you like, oh, here we go.
So I have a question. Is queer not offensive anymore? Is that like...
So, I would say it still depends. However, I'm hearing that queer isn't offensive depending on how you use it.
Okay.
It's just like calling somebody black, you know what I mean?
Right.
I've never been offended with somebody calling me black unless they find a way.
Like blackie.
Yeah, you know.
I get what you're saying.
You know, and then using it in derogatory ways. So one of the things that they broken down, and I have to say this because this is going to help me get into the conversation. Okay. The first thing that we were sent to read was about the women's rights movement. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that they touched on was how in the women's rights movement, initially the fight was for equality women or for equality for women, but it didn't include all women. So naturally, what the women's rights were trying to do was saying that, oh, you know, we can do it too. You remember the poster with the fist up? And,
yeah,
you know,
with the bandana.
Yeah, right.
Flexing her muscles.
But it was for feminine women.
Okay.
And it was saying that feminine women can do it too. But it excluded masculine women. It excluded feminine men. And it's like, if you're trying to fight for equality, then why are you picking and choosing when to be equal?
Okay.
Right? Then we have gay rights.
Mm-hmm.
And then what they realized is that when they in the gay rights movement, there was a lot of things that were still questionable because there was some people that were still finding themselves, and there was some identities that weren't labeled. Therefore, we don't know if they sat under the category of saying gay, but it's like, we need rights too. But it's like, okay, clearly, like, you know, I'm just homosexual. I don't know what you are, so we're talking about rights for me right now. And it's like, again, that doesn't equate equality. As we continue to having this conversation, I want to say that before I get deep into it, I want to dedicate this conversation to two close friends of mine. I won't say their names, but they will know when I have a personal conversation with them that I'm glad I took this class because it has made me want to love you more, and I have a deeper understanding for everything that I don't understand, and I also have the intelligence to ask questions that when I don't understand, to not remain in a place of questioning as much as I'm willing to learn. Mm-hmm. I feel like sometimes we listen to respond, or we listen to have a rebuttal, but we don't listen to interpret, or we don't listen to understand. And that's one of the biggest things that I got from the class. So another cool thing is how we went into labeling, right? Mm-hmm. And I actually gave a whole demonstration to this because I had a final oral project that I had to record and present to my professor, and I did it in front of my students. At the current moment, I'm a youth coordinator for the Summer Opportunity Program, and I felt like, we had an off day. We were supposed to go to the beach. And of course, you've seen that monsoon outside. It was.
Oh, today?
Yeah, it was definitely wasn't beach weather today. No. So it just felt good for, for me to all right, 2 for 1. Since y'all here, let me explain this. So, one of the things that I broke it down to is I drew a figure that you see on a bathroom door. And the regular
gender,
box.
Yeah, that shows.
But I drew the box male blue. Pink. And I drew the box with the little triangle female blue. And then I drew masculinity and then I drew femininity, and I kept on having them kind of contrasting because ultimately what we realized is that labeling has kind of put us against each other. It made everything seem like a versus battle when it was never that way. It's like you kind of have to, it takes an intelligent person to realize that it was never contrasted as much as it was coexist. It's not male, female being the opposite of male. We coexist together. And then what you realize, or what I was realizing as I was doing my reading, is that everything that doesn't have a label, naturally as humans, we alienate it, and we deem it uncomfortable, and we find a way to make it not real.
What's an example of that?
Prime example. If a bug come in here right now, right? Mm-hmm. First of all, I know you're scared of bugs.
Yes.
But if it come in here and you can't really count the legs right away, all you're gonna say is, "Oh my God, it's a bug."
Right? Why you say "Oh my God" like that? Like I wouldn't say it like that.
You like, "Oh my!" I was really gonna be you, but I ain't gonna do that to you like that. But you basically you're gonna freak out because it's a bug, right? And if the bug was to get offended because you called it some roach-looking thing, right? Mm-hmm. And the bug, now let's say the bug had a voice, and the bug is like, "I'm not some roach-looking thing." You know what I mean? Address me by my name. Hold up, man. I'm not some roach-looking thing. I'm a Cinnamon-Peter. I don't know. You know what I mean?
Right.
He'll just have some type of words for it. That's what I'm realizing is that all the major, the umbrella of this conversation that I want everybody to realize is that respect who they are. Mm-hmm. Respect who they are. There's gender identity, and then there's gender expression. Gender identity is who you are on the inside. Gender expression is who you portray to be. So ultimately what happens is the reason why we find confusion is because somebody may identify as one thing, but the way they act is a totally another. And we, since we don't understand it, we find confusion and we find a way to label it because now that needs to be alienated, or we need to push that to the side because we don't respect it because we don't know. Mm-hmm. Now, what's unfortunate about that is that it's like we're perpetuating or we're continuing to carry the same thought or we're almost like provoking the same type of behavior that they're saying. It's like if we're getting accused of something, we're doing what they're accusing us of as much as we unconsciously are aware.
Right, that's what I'm saying. I think it's more we're not conscious of it. We aren't aware. Because I know I've done it.
And we all have done it. The only difference is, I feel like for me, the only difference is I did have an awakening when 2 things happened. One thing that happened was a close friend of mine, had made a post. And when he made the post, he put a hashtag that was alerting to me. And I was like, and I didn't want to ask him right away. So the first thing you do, everybody does, you screenshot it. You send it to somebody else that's comfortable, like, this is our mutual friend. What did you make of this? And he was like, I thought the same thing. I was like, I thought it was just me too. Then I had to delete it out my phone because I didn't want nobody to see it just chilling there. You know what I mean? Just all types of crazy stuff. But then I took some time and I ended up taking, and it's funny that I'm here taking this course now. Like I'm taking the queer theory course now. And I'm just taking it as a summer course, just in the
But why? Like out of all the courses you could have taken, why decide queer theory?
Because what had happened was with my profession and with my major in public health administration, you need to know all people. Mm-hmm. I felt like that was the one group of people I have never concentrated, and I was selfishly not trying to know, and that wasn't me. That's not the person I am. I need to educate myself and I need to be better. So if I'm gonna be in a field where I'm trying to publicly like uplift everybody, then I need to include everybody. So it's like, yo,
That's real.
let's not avoid this conversation. Let's not avoid, the phobia, because I didn't have a phobia as much as like it was a preference.
Right.
And I didn't want to compromise my perception of my preference. That's really what it was.
What do you mean by that?
Okay, so to break it down, there is a term, I have to work backwards, there's a term called heterosexualism. The term heterosexualism implies that somebody is treated as if they're a heterosexual without knowing the sexual orientation of that individual, or pre-perceiving it based off of your preference. So prime example, if you were identified as a lesbian woman and I came in here and I approached you and I tried to like get on with you and you like, I'm not into that, but I was persistent. It's like, yo, you're a heterosexualist because you automatically just assume that I was a heterosexual. Mm-hmm. Well, one thing that I had to debunk, and I really challenged my professor on this, and I said, here's my only argument. My only argument is that there are so many ways that we're trying to protect and so many ways that we're trying to respect, but I feel like in the way of respecting or in the light of respecting, sometimes we're disrespected as heterosexuals.
Right.
So what happens is, it's like, if you want that equality thing, let's keep it real. So what I did was, I told the professor, one thing that you have to understand is space and proximity and culture. Everything is based off of culture. Mm-hmm. So with that being said, I said, shouldn't we have homosexualism? Professor looked at me, I looked at her. And the class was like, and this was an in class. This wasn't even an online, this was an in class. We were like 30 deep, and somebody said, ooh, got her. And I was like, shh, don't do that. You know what I mean? Because my goal wasn't to offend or belittle, but my goal was to bring light. Because here's what the problem was. The problem was, if I have a gender, I would like to say respectfully, another gender classified brother, god brother, okay. Right? And if it's his birthday and he wants to go to what we would call a gay bar, or he wants to go to, out, due to culture and space and proximity, I will automatically be affiliated with a different community based off of my proximity. Yeah.
Okay. Yep. That's true.
So it's not even like I should be mad at them, but it's more so like, I get it. You're gonna assume because I'm here. Mm-hmm. But we don't. It's like, why didn't y'all acknowledge that? But y'all so quick to throw the term heterosexualism and homophobia, and no. Sometimes y'all do some things to us that we don't understand either.
That's true.
So I didn't want. So when I said it, I was like, I'm not trying to say it in an accusatory manner, but I'm also shedding light that you have to start with yourself, and then understand that there are some things that I'm not going to understand, but I'm open to learn. And then even somebody that belongs to a separate community as you should take the time to learn you as well. Mm-hmm. So that's like kind of where I got to introducing this conversation to you, because I had a friend of mine who was supposed to come in, and I would love him to come in. Unfortunately, he had other plans. But that was one of the things that I've noticed. And as I continue reading, there was a lot of there's like 2 or 3 people that, like, if you're interested in this topic, I will encourage you to check out. One of them is Raquel Wilchins, RIKIWILCHINS. She, because she identifies herself as she, has a lot of. It was an easy and comfortable read. Mm-hmm. And the reason why I say it was an easy and comfortable read, because there's another gentleman named Fawcett, Foucault, and it was like Shakespeare. It was. I was reading, I'm like, he was making points, but it was like so much extra words, so poetic. I'm like,
yeah, I just lost you.
Can you help me? Like.
So what was the first book about?
So the first book is actually what we were working out of. It was called Gender Theory, Queer Theory. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I touched on, it touched on everything. Like I said, it even went into binary, which is another conversation I would talk about. I went into the how gender is formed, which is another conversation I'll talk about. And it also, like I said, it tackled, that was the book that I was telling you that started with the women's rights movement, gay rights movement, and then it kind of transgressed into something, into this whole topic. And then we get to the question, so the ultimate question is, what is gender? So let's work backwards in order to get forward. One thing that my professor said in my sexuality class, I didn't tell you the chronological order. I took, fall semester of last year, I took a social protest and change class, social protest and policy class. And then the spring, I took sexuality. And then I was graduating and I needed 3 more credits because Brockport always mess you up at the last minute. And then I took queer theory. I felt like it was complete, like I was like, it brought everything together. In the social protest and social change class, one of the conversations that was brought up was gay rights and LGBTQA plus community rights.
Yeah, so before you even get into all of that, can you just LGBT?
I will without ignorance, I don't know every single letter, but I will say that the reason why there's plus is because there are genders that fall under there, and there are even alliances that fall under there.
So I feel like it's getting longer and changing, like.
You know why it's getting longer and changing? Remember the bug that came in?
Right.
So think about this, the same bug that we was talking about that came in, think about how many roaches exist across the country.
Different types and species, you mean?
And think about the fact that there can be a minor differentiation with one bug, but it's a whole new species. And not just as a whole new species, but we recognize this as a new species, but in the same breath, we have to find a label to identify it. Hence why I said labels have messed up a lot.
Okay.
Labels have altered the conversation. Because now it's like if we don't have a label for it, you don't technically exist. So now we have to find meaning, or we have to find a solution or absolute truth in order for us to accept certain things. So to add to that, I have a friend that's really close to me who was in a relationship with a woman, but she's like, I'm not gay, I'm emotionally connected to this woman. But what happens is I understand that, but it takes the ignorance of somebody else or the enlightenment, with whatever angle they're looking at it, to find out that it's true is what she's saying. But the fact of if the fact that we don't have a label for what she believes or what she's going through, because intrinsically she feels she's a woman. The way she expresses herself is a woman. But then they look at, well, you did a woman, so that automatically makes you know it doesn't. No, it doesn't. We don't have to conform to that box.
Okay.
So that's another portion of it. But to get back to what I was originally about to say, the protest and social change class, we had to watch the movie Philadelphia. And for those of you,
Denzel Washington.
yeah, yes. And Tom Hanks. Tom Hanks had HIV, and Denzel was his lawyer, and they used to compete. But then, it was a friendly competition. Like, they used to work opposite sides. But then he needed him, so Tom Hanks reached out to him like, "Yo, I need you as a lawyer. Here's what's going on. I have a lawsuit. I have all the paperwork, but I can't represent myself." So then what happens is, not to give the movie away because I feel like it's a great movie and everybody should watch it. One significant part of the movie was when Tom Hanks was on the trial. He was on the stand and he addressed to the judge and to the crowd like, he didn't come out about his sexuality because his boss made him uncomfortable, because they were having men time, they were in the shower room, and it was just, saying jokes and stuff. And then next thing you know, the boss says a joke that was targeted towards gay men. And Tom Hanks is like, you're right. You know what I mean? And when that happened, it automatically, I was thrown all the way back, wow. I felt so bad. I was so hurt because the only thing I can think of is my friends around me know my sense of humor. I know how to act in front of people, but if I'm comfortable in front of my people, you're liable to hear some things, right? So I said, what?
Yeah, that's
Who?
everybody.
Now remember the same friend I told you I made the post and we were unsure of. I reached out to him and I said, what if he never told me because of something I said that made him uncomfortable
Comfortable to express that.
Exactly. Now, here's what I was, like I said, I was in that moment. I felt so bad that I went back and I sent him I called him. He was at work. He not deleted, but he sent me a voicemail. And I sent him a really long text message, just basically, letting him know, like, I apologize. I am like, now that I had this newfound feeling, this like revelation, I'm hurt and I'm hurting for you. I hope that I never made you uncomfortable. I hope that I never made it uncomfortable for you to feel like you couldn't express yourself around me. And then he sent me a message back like, man, get out of here, man.
It's not that deep.
Yeah. And then 2 days later, he sends me a deep message like, yo, you don't understand what that did for me. He was like, yo, I know you don't mean anything by it. I know it's jokes, but I really appreciate you for doing that. It makes me feel more uncomfortable. And we never lost a beat in our friendship. And I felt like that was necessary because we don't know how we say things or what we say that affects others around us unconsciously. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, even to the point of, it's jokingly, but we'll be like, yo, no homo. And everybody started laughing, or pause, or, no freaky. And everybody just started laughing, but it's like, there's seriousness behind that could possibly seriously offend somebody. Or
are we getting to the age where, like, anything is offensive now? Like,
I would say everything is up for debate.
Right, and I feel like
everything is questionable because remember we just had the conversation about being called black, right? I have never felt offended by being called black unless I'm in a moment where I am not comfortable with an individual and they was to say it. So now life, and that goes back to a whole nother conversation that I have with a good friend of mine. We livers, or we live and lead by the moments that we're living in. And even the memories that we have, everything that has ever happened to us, we never forgot it, but we just found a way to filter it, and then we process it when need be. So prime example, you can go through a breakup and it can be traumatic in that moment, but then when you see what your creator has done for you, see what your spiritual provider has done for you, or you done came a long way, or you're in a better place, you look back and you like, oh, some people say, oh, that was a test. Some people don't even remember to ask. Or some people will say, I needed that for strength. Or, they find a way to make sense of it. That also coincides with the conversation I was just having about making sense about somebody else's orientation. And if we don't know, then we'll find a way to make sense of it. And if we can't find a way to make sense of it, it's like, okay, that's just wrong. Right. And that's not right.
If you're just tuning in to the 5-Day Fab Report, we have Shay in the building, and we're having a deep conversation. He's definitely putting me onto a lot of stuff that I didn't know about. And we're just moving along in the conversation. So awareness for me was working with students. Mm-hmm. So I won't say I grew up in the church, but I was in church since I was about 17, 18, and been in the church pretty heavy, and so, taboo, homosexuality, all that, abomination, all that.
Right.
So that's what was ingrained in me. And then, I have 2 kids, so that was like all like awareness in itself, because you're more accepting, because if one of my children, came out to me and told me that, they were gay or they were a lesbian, like, I would love them no matter what. Mm-hmm. So that was another level of like, okay, I need to be like that with all people.
Exactly. I was just about to say, and it's like, and then watch this. The same way that you said you're in the church, right? If we were supposed to love thy neighbor like we love ourselves and like we love our God, then why would I love this individual?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, I just gotta love my child. My child got the same thing as this dude, and it's like, I can't love you the same way. Like, I kind of made it, you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like that. And that's another thing I wanted to touch on. So like I said, binary sex and gender are not the same. So it goes back to something that was brought up in class. or brought up in the readings by Rocky, yeah. She brought up the phrase how Aretha Franklin says, "You make me feel like a natural woman." Natural meaning that that's your binary sexual orientation because that's your genitalia, and woman is what you express. You express womanhood by the things that you do. It's like gender is an act. Gender isn't necessarily a label or a pointing. Gender is how you act on it. So I know you as a woman by the way I perceive you, by the things you say, and by how you act as a woman. Intrinsically, how you feel doesn't necessarily have anything to do with me as much as my responsibility is to respect it, right?
Right.
So, we have a term, and now I just kind of learned this term, and I'm like, serious? I
That just make this
no,
up.
listen, I'll be reading, I read, I want to say this in the most politically correct way. I read very animated. I'm a very animated reader.
You're a very animated person.
I'm a very animated person, period. But when I read very thugly. I'll be reading a book and I'm like, wow, really? And people be looking at me like, you would have thought I was texting, because I'm reading, but I'm reading like, yo, wow, and then anybody around me is like, what is you reading? Like, what got you all riled up? And sometimes it really be my work. But one of the things that I read was, I didn't know the term cisgender. Cisgender is basically like the sexual orientation that you was born with, matching what you identify yourself as. I said, so we had to find a term for what we always knew.
So that would be me.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. Yeah.
Why do we have to rename it or
listen, because remember, if it doesn't have a label, it doesn't exist.
Oh,
I said that right there was a complete indication of like, oh, we got to label everything.
That's redundant to me.
It's redundant to you, but it makes sense to somebody else because ultimately, watch this: postmodernization was taking place in the 18th century. So before the 18th century, basically there was only the conception of attraction. There was never, there wasn't names, there wasn't labels. It was simply just attraction. That's why you will see some of the really old art of like young boys, you know what I mean? And everybody was naked. Like, you know what I mean? It was just, probably a little leaf. They probably had like a little leaf. That's about it. But everybody, you know what I'm saying? So what happened is the church was like, oh no, this is not right. This is immoral. And if you're out here just doing these things because you're doing it as a desire, you're doing it as something that you like, you're not doing it for the love. You're not in the love of the Lord. You're doing it simply as a desire, and that's a sin.
Okay, so that's where sin came from, or
okay? Now wait, hold on. It gets even better. So then they said, come in and tell us everything that you know of.
Your confession, or
yeah. They want to know everything, and then people like, well, I was into this and I did that, and they had to find a way to label everything. And then once they found a way to label everything, next thing you know, it was like, okay, you are a heterosexual, because the original term for heterosexual was anybody that was having sex without the thought or without the action of procreation.
Oh,
because you simply just doing it for pleasure. He wasn't doing it to procreate. Now, with that being said, because like I told you, I'll be reading in my DMX. So I literally I be reading like that, and I had put the book down, and I went just like this. So doesn't that make like everybody heterosexual? Because we do it for the pleasure. Like, I have never seen somebody say, I'm not gonna enjoy this. We're doing this to make the baby. Like what? Like so when I read that.
Think about men who get in the bed and the wife just have to comply. She ain't doing it for pleasure. She just doing it because.
So somebody was another sexual that we don't know, and then we had a heterosexual. I put like this: somebody did it for pleasure, is somebody did it for charity. That's different. And guess what? It does exist, but since we don't have a label on it, we're not gonna be one of those people. Okay. All right? We're not gonna put things. We're not gonna say that we don't have a label, so it doesn't exist. Basically. But it's like I said, I was just reading these things, and the more I was running into these terms, the more I was running into, all this newfound information. And I'm no guru. Don't say, like, I know I'm not the end all be all, but what I'm simply trying to say is, as a male who identifies as a post-modernization heterosexual male, I am a cisgender male, as I just learned. I'm saying that I get it, I understand, and I respect you. Mm-hmm. And I'm speaking on behalf of myself and some of the people that I'm closest to, because I know even my circle might confuse some people. You might see me with, some of the best, and I'm rubbing elbows with some good people. Then you might see me with a whole different crowd, and it's like, well, who is that? Because I love all people. Mm-hmm. And my biggest thing about loving all people is respecting everyone. Because we all have some flaws, we all have some things that we're not proud of, we all have some things that we might find ourselves guilty of, but ultimately we don't have a way of pushing people out there, or we have a way of pushing people out there and making them look bad simply because they never conform.
True. True. And who are we to make them conform anyways?
Exactly.
I never thought about it like that. I remember I had some family members who were dealing with their own stuff and trying to figure out their sexuality, and they were made to feel some kind of way. And I was like, because they were going back and forth, and I'm like, what are you doing right now? But that's not even my place to say that.
I'm glad you said that, because that's all I say. That's what we be messing up. We be minding other people's business.
Right. And that's what I think is weird. Like, when we start, like, especially you see it a lot on Facebook, where people be so concerned with who somebody else is sleeping with. Like, like, I don't care. To me, that's weird.
It's like, not only are we concerned with who other people are sleeping with, we're also concerned by, well, if you're sleeping with it, what does that make you?
Right. Like you said, gotta put a label on it.
You know what I mean? You know what I mean? And like I said, I felt like labeling everything was something that as I ain't gonna say it. I was just
well, just clean it up.
I can't find a way to clean it up. That's all I can think about is how the white man, you know what I mean? But that's how we view things. It wasn't for the white man, but you know what I mean? But being more serious, it's like we had to find a way to classify everything. And if we don't, then it's like you said, we almost make it like it doesn't exist. And the thing about the queer theory class was, why? It wasn't a studies class, it was a theory class. Where did this come from? And theory is questions that are based on questions, that overlap questions until we find a deeper root. And what I realized is that it's the amount of labeling and the lack of love. Because the more you love something, the more you're attracted by it, nothing else interferes with that. If you love your child, the more you love your child, no matter what they do, you never stop loving them. When you're deeply in love and you have a relationship with your Creator, you're understanding the way, like, I love God, the way I receive God, nothing else bothers that. There's never been somebody step in and like, you really love God? And I said, you know what, you're right. No. When you have an intimate connection with something, there is very little that can step in that way. And ultimately, the only thing that can interfere with that intimate connection is something between you and that individual, or you and that something. I still have a deep found connection with Lay's potato chips. I've been on this diet, and I've been trying to stop eating potato chips. I know somebody gonna hear this and they're gonna talk junk about me. I'm working on me, all right? I'm working on me. Leave me alone. But with that being said, Lay's too.
You still plain?
No, not plain. I like all flavors, no fruit. See, look, now I gotta be saying something crazy. That's what I'm talking about, man. But it's like, it's more so like, no matter what you say, no matter what you know, it can only be offending somebody or offending something. That's another point I want to get to, is intrinsic. Because, like we just said, if we're doing something for ourselves and we're minding our own business, we don't really care about what other people are doing. Some things can be said, and it's like, it is what it is, unless somebody is purposely trying to offend you. And then a good friend of mine, Mr. Darko, had once said, the fear, he was like, we don't necessarily have a fear of a thing, we have a fear of uncomfortability. The uncomfortability of a situation is what we fear. Because we don't, like, prime example, we don't fear getting into a fight, but we fear getting hit. You know what I mean?
Hey, that's the same thing, right? No?
Because if you win it, you ain't scared.
Okay. Well, I'm scared of it going viral.
Listen, like you said, we're scared of the uncomfortability of our reputation.
Yes.
You know what I mean? When we were coming up and our parents would say, "We're gonna beat your way when we get home," we wasn't scared of the belt. We felt it before. We was scared of how long it was gonna take. Like, is this gonna be a stinger and we back outside? Is this gonna be a premeditated because I forgot to take out the garbage last week and I did get a phone call? We create fear in our mind. And when we create this fear, it's like, oh, dang. So what am I really afraid of? And that goes back to the original conversation that, like, we can find so many different things in the world, but it'll keep going back to the same conversation of, like, why are we fearing these people that we don't know rather than respecting them and trying to get to learn them? And then I'm asking in the same breath, I feel like, and I'm saying this as for me, they need to also have patience to get to understand us, because we're all not against you.
Right. It's just we're not all there. We don't have that level of understanding just yet. And if I'm not there, educate me. Don't make me feel bad. Teach me.
And I'm gonna tell you one even better. You don't know me because you're educating yourself and you're something totally different. So I'm gonna have to teach you as well. Like I feel like the biggest things that we can teach one another is like I could teach a friend of mine that identifies himself as anything other, and I'm saying that respectfully, is that we're all not mean. Just because I don't understand doesn't mean I disagree, or doesn't mean that I hate you. It doesn't mean that I have a phobia. It doesn't mean any of that. I simply just don't know. And in the process of me getting to know you and trying to learn, respect me and respect the fact that I'm growing with you. Let's grow off each other. I feel like the biggest phrase that I always lived by that my mom taught me was to teach people how to treat you. As long as you're treating people the way they treat you, one, I feel like you're demoting your own energy. Mm-hmm. You know, like we had this biggest phrase last year. It started last year, the year before last. Keeping that same energy.
Or matching energy.
Or, I'm matching. What I look like matching somebody's energy if I woke up and my energy was on 1,000.
But it's hard, Shay.
Wait though. Listen, and your energy is on 400, right? All I can do is acknowledge that you got 400 energy. Okay, more power to you. I'm not about to demote me in order to make us feel equal when I can elevate you.
Yeah, that sounds all good and fine, but sometimes, trust me, I was at a point where I'm like, no, I'm not matching energy no more. I'm just gonna be who I am. But then when you have energy that's like consistently the same, mm-hmm. like it's hard not to match it. And I'm saying like
it's hard not to match it, but it's easy to ignore it.
Yeah, you could ignore it. Just depends on like.
And watch this. This is something totally different.
How often are you around that person?
Energy is contagious, correct?
It is.
So when you remove yourself from space and proximity, are you still matched with the same energy?
No.
There you go your solution. Leave. we did that quick. That got done that quick. See what happens there? Just leave. And I know it sound like I made it that simple, because sometimes maybe it may be difficult. But what I'm saying is, if you left that place in your mind, your soul and your body is all connected as one, so it left with it. I am no longer there. I'll be in the midst of an argument and I have a bad, good habit. It's a good, bad habit. I emotionally left out of places.
Oh, I'm notorious for that. I know how to detach very well.
And I'm like, okay. And I'm still active listening, but I'm no longer there, because I realize that this is not where I need to be. But what happens is respecting that, you know what I mean? And like I keep, like, you notice that I keep like repeating the same words: respect, acknowledge, respect, because I feel like that's ultimately what we're dealing with, and we're finding that either people are perceiving miseducated folks as being disrespectful rather than acknowledging that they're miseducated.
Yeah, I see definitely a lot of that Facebook, social media, where people are trying to put people on blast, and I don't think it's because they we have jerks out there. You have people that just don't want to know. Like, they have no desire to elevate.
No.
But then you have people who, like me, maybe they grew up in the church or, and that's what they're basing their opinions off of. So
that's just like Tommy, who was born in you know what I'm saying, and all he knows is N-word, 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 and then next thing you know, he's like, Daddy, the N-words are so cool. And then poof, now he get decked in the eye and you're like, what just happened? No, you can't use that.
Right.
if you only know what you know, then it's like, let me reteach you. Let me teach you how to treat me.
But where do we start having those conversations? Like, what spaces are made to have those conversations?
We just created them.
Yeah, we just created one. True.
And that's why these things exist. We created space. What I learned is that it's funny. This is one of those moments. I used to be afraid to approach women. Not like I didn't like them. I was just afraid to make the first move. I was that dude that would have a whole conversation with you, and I feel like in a female mind, she's like, when is he gonna ask me for my number? And I just walk away.
Like at what you told me at Applebee's.
Yeah, and just like right. It's been good. And just walk off. Like what? You didn't ask for the number? I'll probably be in the car beating myself up like, dang, you didn't ask for the number. But it's more so like, it's like, just do it. You know what I mean? Just do it. And I feel like it's easier to get it, I don't want to say just get it done and over with, because it almost sounds like you don't care. But it's easier to start something and build on it. You know what I mean? If I have this box, and in this box is saying all the things that I've learned about, everything. Okay, and I realized that this is my box of what I learned about math, because I teach math. This is my box of what I know about being a young father. This is my box that I know about, and all these boxes I constantly fill. Why have we avoided the box of understanding sexual orientation, or understanding gender identity, or understanding everything that we don't know? We just keep looking at that box like, well, I guess I ain't gonna need this box anytime soon. It's unfair. Because ultimately, what you'll realize is there's some things about ourselves that we don't know. Like, I never knew, best example, I am completely cisgender, heterosexual.
You gotta throw that out there.
Right? You know what I mean? This boat rocks for one lady, all right? But that being said,
wait, what?
Never
mind.
But what I'm saying, what I'm really getting to is like, I can joke like that, but ultimately what I'm saying is, I don't have any disrespect for anybody else in their sexual orientation, and I embrace it because I embrace the thought of learning. I want to be educated. Tell me something I don't know. Help me understand. And guess what? You don't even have to tell me your label. Just help me so I can help you. So I can go and tell my other friends who may say something disrespectful, and I can say, yo, that's not what we're doing here.
Right.
Especially out of your defense. But don't make me out, don't label me before you get to know me, because that's where I felt like, that's where I was getting uncomfortable, and I was getting the DMX with in this class and when I was reading, because it's like, at any point where people feel like they don't understand, the first thing they say is like, they're ignorant, or they're homophobic, and it's like, yes, there are that stigma and let's go back to culture. There's that stigma in the black community.
Oh, for sure.
In the black community, because ultimately it's like, if you hang with them, you wanted them. Mm-hmm. And it's like, even using the term them is like, them, wow.
Like,
how derogatory.
Yeah, because we hate when people say it to us. Like,
if somebody say them over there, and I notice that we all black, and I look over there, let's get them. You know what I mean? Like, you can't use certain words and think that's okay. It don't fly like that.
So it's this new wave, like on Facebook, where people are trying to like expose people who are transgender, or like people don't already know. Like, I seen this guy, he wrote, I don't know. Honestly, I don't know what he identifies as. So I know this person, and he wrote a post, and I guess somebody tried to expose him, but he basically explained, like, what are you doing? Like, people already know you're like preaching to the choir. I'm comfortable with myself, but you were in my inbox.
Oh.
And because, I didn't give you a certain time of day, this is what you resort to.
Now, you know what's funny about that? It goes back to the insecurity I was telling you about. You know what I mean? Because I done seen some things where it's like, even in, you know, put like this, you know how like you'll see something with somebody that like you'll have a relationship with somebody, and then they will do something. And what I mean by a relationship is like you're cool with them, you're cordial, whatever the case may be, but they'll do something that's like, that's what you do. You know what I mean? It's not my place for conversation. You know, yeah, you know what I mean? Like I didn't take you to be that type of person. You know what I mean? And then you go to them on the side and say, hey, I never thought you would do that, or you know, what's up with this? You know what I mean? The fact or the corny, I think it's corny. I'll call it corny. The corny thing about exposing anybody is that it's like it makes you look sad. You know what I mean? You need a hug. You need help. You know what I mean? The fact that you went out your way to expose somebody, it's like, really? That's what we doing? Because you had so much time to be in my business that you couldn't worry about your own. Like, you know how I felt. There was things that I went in, situations that I done dealt with exes where it's like, they done, you know what I mean? The slander, and it's like, my soul won't allow me to say anything. I know my truth. I'm gonna be like that. You know what I mean? And then even when they go on to do great things, yo, congratulations, I'm proud of you. I see you doing your thing over there. Because that's how genuine I am. I'm not about to demote that energy. But it's like, it needs to be met with the same respect of, if I'm respecting you, have that same respect for me. One thing I want to touch on before I forget, because it had me dying laughing, especially now that everybody is like into this whole trends thing. I never been a fan of trends growing up. Certain words will come out and I'm like, I'm not using that. You know what I mean? Like, remember when everything like bomb.com? I never used that. I never, why?
I sent it in emails, like, oh.
Oh my God.
Wait, hold on, before we go even further, you listen to 100.9 WXIR, the 585 Report with Atiana and Bishop. We are on every Sunday from 6 to 7. But yes, I use bomb.com. If you're just tuning in, we have Shay in the building, and we're having a conversation on a lot of stuff.
A lot of stuff.
A lot of stuff. All right, so yes, I use bomb.com.
I never use it and I hate it. It's a lot of like I think I probably use capping. Like the new word is like, oh, no cap. I probably said that one time and I felt so disgusted I would take a shower. Like I just don't ride through trends. With that being said, right? One of the things that my professor pointed out, and she had me crying. She said, "Oh, I hate gender reveals." What do you mean a gender reveal? It makes my butt itch. She was going in, and we just dying laughing.
I'm the same though. I feel her. Like that's why.
Here's the funny thing about gender. Remember, I just told you, gender is an action. There's gender expression and there's gender identity. And then with that being said, how you going to say what your baby going to be when your baby barely even look at like something in the pictures?
Right.
What you can have is a binary sex reveal. That's true.
Imagine if people start saying
a genitalia review. Yo, I want you to come through. We about to have a genitalia review for my baby. Like, that's true. You can say that. Everything else is like, nah, I ain't like that. Scientifically, or what was proposed, or what was said to me is that, what I've learned, I should say, is that one doesn't even know their gender until they're at least 3. Now, here is the argument that I brought up as well.
Well, my son did. He used to play with his, but I guess he didn't have like. He was the one that was always touching himself. My son.
No, that's normal. That's normal.
No.
Believe it or not, you masturbate in the womb. Sexuality class was dope. If anybody, if I say it's one of those things, it's like I learned some things. Like wait, like you'll see, like that's why you see like little babies touching themselves, because the curiosity is the sensory. Like, oh my God, I can feel that. You know what I mean? And then, just like when you get little, or you know, you hear the stories like I show you mine, you show me yours. It's like, ooh, you know what I'm saying? It's natural that kids are exploring, and that's one of those things where it's like that's a whole nother subject that was, you know, the sexuality class, but that's what brought me to this queer theory class, because, like you said, gender, a child doesn't know their gender until they're at least 3 years old. And then ultimately what happens is if they can be internally feeling one way, but they feel like they have to project something due to the culture and the environment that they're in. So if I'm around, prime example, I think we all know that one kid that we all thought was kind of,
Right.
you know what I mean? That's what we'll say, respectfully. That's what we'll say.
Yeah.
But the thing is, if he was around cousins, you know what I mean, hard uncles, then all he know is to be hard. Hence the reason why there is another, just like a whole separate conversation for black men that identify as anything other than heterosexual in the black community, especially urban, poverty-filled black community, because you have to fight twice as hard.
Twice as hard. I see it in the schools.
Because now it's like I can't even question, or it's like I'm not gonna question your masculinity, but at the same time, I'm perceiving you as acting feminine. But here's where I'll talk about the class. Here's something that we brought up in class. Feminine and masculinity never were binary to a genitalia or a binary sex. They were never. It was never said that men were only going to be masculine, women were only going to be feminine. And like I expressed to you about how the women's rights was like, it never fought for masculine women. It only fought for feminine women. It never fought for feminine men. It only fought for feminine women. And now it's like, oh, so you're doing the same thing that you don't want us to do. You're still putting labels, you're still pushing certain people out, and you're still only protecting certain people. When you're trying to push it, you're trying to push the agenda of equality. It doesn't work that way. Now, take it a step further. With that being said, if man doesn't necessarily or ultimately equate masculinity, women don't equate femininity, then why is it that we have a problem when we perceive things differently, or when, oh my God, I wish I would have brought my terms with me, but there's a term for it. But basically what it's saying is like, when we perceive things based off of their physical appearance. So we just automatically assume you're a male because of the way you're a male because of the way you're groomed or the clothes that you have on. Like when remember I told you how I made the frames, and when I asked my students, like I even wrote the word masculinity, I wrote it in cursive and all pretty, and I wrote femininity like really hard and like in graffiti. And it's like, why do we give things? Yeah, like like we're making stuff up.
Right. Right.
And that's what we're starting to realize, like we're making stuff up and we're giving things, we're just making titles for things to make it excusable and make it comfortable for us without trying to consider everybody's comfortability. And the only way we can do that is by erasing the labels.
I see, well, I'm not going to say I see, but there's like this new trend where parents are allowing their kids to basically do what they want. So wear what they want, give themselves different names if they want them, paint their fingernails. Like, I've seen at least 4 kids like that within the last year, where parents just allow them to basically do whatever they want to.
Now, so I don't feel like it's doing whatever they want to as much as they're allowing them artistic expression, they're allowing them social expression, because this is the same thing I brought up in class. I personally believe that although there are some biological factors that are involved in creating gender, it's also a learned stimulus. It's a learned stimulus, and society has found ways to kind of break norm and to make everything seem norm, because what it goes back to is like I said, the theory. What is norm? Norm can't necessarily be heterosexual, or cisgender with another cisgender of the opposite sex. That doesn't necessarily equate norm.
Yeah, that's my norm.
That's our norm. Notice what you just said. It's our norm, because culturally, how we were brought up, religiously, what we believe creates our norm. We are the center of our universe. We create our reality. So the reality that we create may coincide, or it may also be in comparison with somebody else who has the same kind of ideas. So since the majority of us have the same ideas, we're the majority, so we seem right. But that's not right. I'm telling you, listen, I will be honest and be the first person to say that this was the hardest thing to wrap my mind around. But at the end of it, I realized that it meant so much more to me to know than for me to not know.
So, this new level of awareness that you have.
I still love women.
No. Trust me, I wasn't going there with you.
I'll let you finish. I'll mess with you.
But have you had these conversations with some OGs? I'm not talking about like, I'm talking, okay.
I haven't because they're not ready.
Exactly.
They're not ready. And what I mean by, like, I know they're not ready, but at the same time, I'm not ready.
Do you think like they're gonna be like, yo, what's up with him now?
And I wouldn't care. I wouldn't care. I say that respectfully, I wouldn't care. And the only reason why I say I wouldn't care is because I know who I am.
Mm-hmm.
I trust who I am. And just because I'm defending somebody, that's just like if I defend a child, you know what I mean? If you know what I mean, like I'm defending what's right. It's never who's right, it's what's right. And what's right is that we all deserve equality. Because honestly, the biggest thing, another reason why it was hard for me to accept this class, and I'm gonna keep it a buck, is because I felt like there were more rights that were in play, that were being actively used for people that belong to the LGBT community, and we have rights of being black.
Yeah. And that's
like yo, y'all, I commend the strides that they made, but like, yo, fam, I've been black for mad long. My ancestors been black for mad long.
And we still fighting for the same thing.
We're still fighting for the same thing that y'all got in like 20-something years. And I'm not saying that it was easy. I'm not saying that it was easy. And I'm not saying that we should like go away or steer away from the conversation. What I'm simply trying to say is that I get it, because it was hard for me to have this conversation because I was so pro-black, because I know my people, because I know my ancestors and I know my history, and because I know that we still deserve 40 acres and a mule, and that ain't good enough right now. You know what I mean? Y'all over here getting, you know what I'm saying? I can't even say certain things without it being a hate crime, but then we have 45 in office saying the most off-the-wall things and nothing's happening to them. Like things that if I say certain stuff, it can be considered a sexual heinous slur, and I can go down, right? Everybody would stop messing with me, all types of stuff. But then when he says something that's racially profiled and we see it's significant, nothing's happening. Well, now that part alone was like, I can't even fight y'all fight yet. I got one fight to fight for my people, like, cause at the end of the day, I'm still be black. I don't know what to tell you. Okay? So that was one of the things where I had to get over that and get involved and learn.
So our time is almost up. I do want to thank you because like during this last hour, I learned so much, and it's just making me become aware of the things I say and my thoughts. Like when this conversation is taking place, or when I'm introduced to things that I don't understand. Mm-hmm. So it's just making me be more aware to ask questions when I don't know.
Right.
And be cognizant of the way I'm asking questions, because I think that's another thing.
Yes.
That we ask questions, and sometimes the way we ask those questions and our facial expressions can offend the person, that when we're not trying to do that, we're simply just trying to gain more information.
And here's what I say to that, because I can agree. But the other part that I would add to that is that if I'm coming to you humbly, trying to become better, understand I may fall short, but my heart is in the right place. You know what I mean? It's the person that walks into church and they got on a white tee and some sneakers, and it's like, are we pushing them away, or are they coming because they need something? I need you in order to understand. Respect the fact that I may not come with all the great tools. I don't have all the big words in my vocabulary, but I can dumb things down, because the first part of any relationship, even then the root word, is relate. If we find something to relate on, we'll find a common ground. Once we find that common ground, we can add on the things that we can relate on, and then we can have these conversations.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for tuning into the 585 Report. We had Shay in the building. Catch us next Sunday from 6 to 7 p.m. on 100.9 WXIR.
Thank you, Pat.
Thank you. I was scared about this conversation.
You were scared.
I'm like, where's this even gonna go?
Yo, make sure you watch the whole thing. I appreciate everybody that tuned.